Sheva Brachot that we had. It was a nice occasion. Because of that, we're starting late. I want to tell you, right, regarding the Parsha of Tazria. This is actually what we read last week in the Parsha Shavua. And now we're up to it here as well. It happens to coincide. Baruch Hashem, we're on the same page as the Parsha Shavua. Very good. So, what does it talk about over here? The first thing it talks about, there's a lot of things in Vaikra, in Leviticus, that talks about which are not so relevant in our time. Sacrifices, the offerings in the Bet HaMikdash, in the temple. These things we don't do today. I want to cover more of the relevant topics, you know what I mean? So actually, right in the beginning of this Parsha, there's a very relevant topic to us. What is it talking about? It's talking about a woman who gives birth. Very simple, right, idea, right? So what happens when a woman gives birth? When she gives birth, it says the Torah, it depends on what? Whether she had a son or a daughter. Right? Remember that, okay. So what's the difference? There's a difference regarding how much time she has to wait. What does that mean? You know what happens, right? The point is like this, right? When a woman gives birth, her uterus opens up like wide, really way open. It's like all the way open, 100%. So what happens is that everything gets discharged from there. The baby itself gets discharged, this is one of them, right, obviously, right? The placenta, and everything comes out of there. But also you have one other thing, right, which comes out of there, which is the blood. You know what I mean? There's blood in the uterus all the time. So the blood also comes out. See, what happens is like this, right, that the baby needs fresh blood to survive. Because the mother is also always passing on blood to the baby. How is the baby getting its blood supply? From the mother. So she has to produce lots of extra blood for the baby. That's why, the women who are pregnant are always weak, and they can't do much, and they're very, they have to sit down and rest and this and that, because they're supporting another life inside there. You know what I mean? So what happens is like this, right? And nevertheless, no matter how much blood she made for the baby, but she also has extra blood left over as well. There's going to be like a discharge of that blood which was not used, unused blood. So what happens is, right, that the blood comes out, the baby comes out, the placenta comes out, as we said. So what happens is, right, that just like any other discharge which comes from the uterus, that makes the woman tameh, right? It makes her impure, right? So in order to understand, right, what the impurity is over here, right? Let's say the person got a bruise, right? He went to play soccer, and he fell down, got a bruise and he was bleeding, and Jimmy knows about that. He likes to play soccer, so. The good old days, right? So you know how it is, right? You come back, and does that make you tameh? Does that make you impure because you bled? So then, why is the woman, become tameh when she bleeds? What's the reason for the woman? What difference is it between you bleeding or her bleeding? So the truth is, right, that her bleeding is a different story altogether. Why is that? Because that blood that she has every month, right, gets stored up over their blood. This is the whole menstrual cycle. You understand? So the menstrual cycle, the way it works is like this. Basically, every month, the body of the woman prepares for pregnancy, potential pregnancy, if she's going to get pregnant or not. This is what happens, right? So in order to prepare for the pregnancy, she has to store up blood. She needs like a fresh supply of blood, like a blood bank, You go, what do you have, type O, type B, type A, whatever. You have to know which type you have. So she's also storing up blood for her baby, the potential baby that may come. So what happens is that every month, why does she get the period? What's the reason why? Because the blood which was discharged when she didn't have a baby, in other words, her egg was not fertilized by the man, right? So therefore what happens is that now the blood gets aborted, discharged, because there's no use for it. You can't use that blood in a different occasion because, it has to be fresh blood. You know what I mean? You can't wait till next month or whatever, So that blood has to get discharged because it has no use anymore. So, the way it's explained by my rabbi, one of my rabbis, he said that this is the reason why the woman becomes impure when she has a period. Why is that? Because there was a potential for life over there, right? And the life was not realized, and therefore she discharged the blood, and therefore when life is not realized, there's a potential for life, and it's not realized, so that discharge of blood becomes impure. There was potential, but it didn't get realized. So life, right, a person who's living, a living Jew especially, right? We're talking about a Jew, so a living Jew has Kedusha, he has holiness in his neshama. He's a holy, holy neshama, they're very, very holy. So that potential was not realized, and the woman discharged. So therefore what happens is that now, instead of the holiness, becomes impurity. It comes instead. So this is the reason why a woman becomes impure when she has her period. So similar a thing over here goes on, right? Which is what? That when she gives birth also there's a discharge of blood. And that blood was not used for life, even though there was actually a baby that came out, right? But there was something left over there, some leftovers, some remnants that were not used. That's the way it is, right? Always when you build something, a building, you're always going to have leftover materials, Some cement got left over, some wood, whatever. So where does it go? It goes into the garbage, right? God knows what, whatever, right? Goes to the junkyard, I don't know where it goes, right? So that's all, same thing over here. So what happens is like this, right? That now, says the Torah over here, something amazing. That usually a woman who has her period, right, how many days is she impure, according to the Torah? So the Torah tells us, right, it's 7 days. 1 week, basically, right? What does that mean? For the time that she starts bleeding, right? Let's say she stopped, the average period is like, let's say 4 or 5 days, right? On the average. So, depending, on the woman. Some are more, some are less. So the point is like this, right? That even though she stopped bleeding, let's say after 4 days, but nevertheless she has to wait till the 7th day is over. And then according to the Torah, she's supposed to go to the mikveh, the ritual bath, right? Which we're downstairs. Go downstairs over there, right? And you go and immerse in there, and she becomes pure for her husband. That's the way it is, right? That's the idea.
Even about that, she was lying to you. I had to wait 2 weeks.
Oh.
Listen.
Okay. History. Okay. History lesson. So what happens is like this, right? Now, she has to go to the mikveh. What is it? Why? There's actually, somebody told me something really funny, right? That there were some communities where a lot of ignorance came into the community. A lot of people didn't know what they were doing, whatever. So one of them happens to be, right, not all of them, but some of the, in Iran, I heard from people, came from Iran, that some of the women over there were, instead of going into the mikveh, they were going into like a bath. They took a bath, and they thought that was also good. You know what I mean? They get into the bathtub, fill it up, go in there, and that's it, she's pure, whatever. So the truth is, right, it's not like that, right? So it has to be a mikveh. What's the difference between a mikveh and regular water? Regular water is drawn, right, from some source, some reservoir, right, upstate, whatever, right, wherever it comes from, some reservoir or whatever. But this is rainwater or well water or spring water, right, mikveh water. So there's something else altogether, right? So therefore you need a certain amount of water. How much amount of water do you need to immerse yourself? You need enough water to immerse the whole body around, all around. The head to the toe, back, front, everything in one shot. If you have enough water to immerse the whole body, this is considered to be, right, tahor. How much is that approximately? So the approximation, right, according to our measures, it's about 1,200 liters of water you need in the mikveh. 1,200 liters. A lot of water, But it's not really, when you look at it in a big tub, it doesn't really look that much. It doesn't look that much. But that's what you need. That's the minimum amount, more or less, right, that a person needs to immerse into the mikveh. So that's interesting. So according to Torah, it's 7 days. That's what you need. Once the 7 days over, you go to the mikveh and you're done. That's it. Go back to your husband, right? But what happens is, right, that the rabbis here added, according to Talmud, they added another layer of stringency over here on this. What's the reason why they added another layer? There was a very important reason why they did that. Because when a woman bleeds, there's 2 types of bleeding that a woman can have. One is called nida, which we're talking about now, menstruation. There's also another type called zava. Zava. So what is the difference between this and that? Nida is menstruation, and zava comes from a different place, that blood. It's not the same origin. It's not from that uterus, that blood, right, that you have that builds up for nida. It's a different source altogether. Конечно. Okay, so as we said, right, that there's 2 different things going on there. So now the din of zava, if a woman has zava, she has that kind of blood, she also needs to be impure for 7 days. There's all kinds of rules there regarding that, right? So the truth is that nowadays, when a woman bleeds, we don't know if we're not really 100% sure whether she's nida or zava. You know why? Because this depends on the monthly cycle. It depends on which time of the month she bleeds. And today we don't, we're not so focused on this to concentrate which day of the month it was, and this day and that day, there's 11 days, and then there's the rest of the month, all kinds of cycles going on there, you understand? So therefore, the rabbi said, you know what, since we don't know anymore we're not so focused on these things. I mean, we could do it in theory. But the problem is that which woman now counts, her month and says, it's the days of Zavah, it's the days of Nidah, 11 days over here, right, and the 21 days, right, 19 days over here. We're not so, we're too distracted with things, we have all kinds of things, distractions. So therefore, since the rabbis were afraid that a person is too distracted, especially a woman, to count these, right, differentiations, so therefore what they did was they said, you know what, when a woman bleeds, she has to do both the din of Nidah and also din of Zavah, to cover both possibilities. So therefore, what happens is, right, in order to cover these both possibilities, you have to be pretty much separate for 2 weeks, more or less, right? Could be a little bit less than that, right? In other words, it could be, let's say if the woman's period is 4 days, right? She bled for 4 or 5 days. So then 5 plus 7 would be 12, right? So 12 days she would be out of commission. Right, for a husband. This is the idea. So we're covering both bases. What does that mean? That according to, as we said, the laws of Nidah require that it should be 7 days altogether, whether she's bleeding or not. Doesn't matter. The laws of Zavah require something else. The laws of Zavah require that she has to do 7 clean days. What does that mean? She has to count 7 days clean, where she didn't see any blood whatsoever. She checks herself every day. Twice a day, preferably. That's the way it is. So what happens is, right, that now we have to do 7 days of Nidah, and then the 7 days of Zavah. So it comes out altogether, you understand, we have about 12 days. Why is that? Because as soon as she stops bleeding, we start counting days of Zavah. Clean days, right? And therefore we cover, it's like an overlap there, between Nidah and Zavah. It covers both bases. And therefore altogether, you have about 12 days to 14 days, whatever. So this is the time of Nidah. So this is a time that a person has to separate from his wife. This is the idea, By the way, I noticed a lot of Georgian families I see, that what they do is that when their wife is in Nidah, they go and sleep in a different room, they don't even sleep in the same room with her, you know what I'm saying? They go they go to the living room, whatever, things like this. The truth is, according to halakha, this is not obligation to do that. What does that mean? That in the religious families, what you have basically is, right, that you have in the bedroom 2 beds, Sometimes they're together, sometimes they're apart, or whatever, something like that, something like that. So what happens is, right, that the man sleeps in the same room with his wife, but in a different bed, that's all. That's the idea, It doesn't have to be a separate room.
Like the 1950s television.
I like that. I like that, okay. That brings back memories, yeah. Yeah.
On TV, you were not allowed to say the word pregnant.
Right, all kinds of words like that. You were not to say, yes. The good old days when America used to be,
Before
Okay. So that's pretty much more or less, right, the law of Nidah. But now we have here the laws of childbirth, which are quite different, right, over here. What's the difference, right? Over here, first of all, it depends on if you have a son or a daughter. Some kind of discrimination going on over here, understand? The man is one thing, the woman is something else. Some people don't like this kind of stuff, discrimination, What is that? Man is one, man. We're all equal, created equal, But according to this halakha, not everything is equal. In this halakha, not everything is equal. So what happens like this, right? That if a woman gives birth, it says in the Torah over here, if a woman gives birth to a boy, that means that she needs to do 7 days for the birth, wait until she goes back to her husband, just like Nidah. Just like Nidah requires 7 days, she also requires 7 days. So what happens is, according to the Torah, after the 7th day, she goes to the mikveh, and then after that she can be with her husband. But now she's also counting one more count after that. What does that mean? She's going to count now 33 days altogether. So altogether comes out to be 40. 40 days, right? 40 days and 40 nights. Right? Whatever. So, whatever, right? So, what is the difference between the first 7 days and the last 33? What's the difference? The difference is, as we said, that she's allowed to be with her husband after 7 days. So then why does she count 33 more days? What's the reason why? You know why? Because after the 33 days are over, altogether 40 days, right? Then she has to go to the Bet HaMikdash and bring a korban. She has to bring an offering. For a woman who gives birth has to bring an offering to the Bet HaMikdash. Today we don't have Bet HaMikdash, obviously, right? But there's still a practical difference there regarding this, right? What does that mean? That even though we don't bring korban, the Bet HaMikdash. By the way, what she does is that when she counts the last 33 days, she immerses again into the mikveh. Again, this is the second time, right? And then she's allowed to go into the Bet HaMikdash. Before that, she wasn't allowed to go in. She can be with her husband, but she can't go into the Bet HaMikdash. It's a different level, different plateau over here. Two different things, right? So, what happens is like this. Interesting thing, by the way, according to the Torah, okay, once she finished the 7 days and went to the mikveh, if you notice, by the way, I'm sure you've all experienced this, right? When your wife gave birth, right, we're talking about usually, the blood goes on for like a couple of weeks, It could go on for quite some time. You know what I mean? So, but you just told me, wait a second, 1 week you're allowed to go with your wife, that's it, right? What about if she's bleeding after that as well? So you know what the halakha is? That blood that she sees after the 7th day is clean. Clean blood. Can you imagine? So there is such a thing as clean blood, there is such a thing as impure blood. They're two different things. Different time zone, 7 days, one time zone, 33 days, different time zone. So she could be bleeding at that time, right? And she's pure, she can still be with her. Very strange, right? But that's what the Torah tells you over here.
Now,
yeah.
When you say with the Torah says,
yeah.
you mean to the Torah, that you can be with her.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to have sex for the hell of having sex, right? Sex.
Okay.
Yet the Torah doesn't stop a man from having sex if the woman is pure.
Yeah, this is a very good question, actually, what he's asking. A very good question. Very powerful question.
And yet,
yes.
There has to be a limit to how many children you can bring to the world.
Well, before we get to the children, right, regarding the act itself, you know what I mean? That's what we're talking about, first of all, right? So the truth is, right, that a person, the most important thing about having relations with his wife should be to have children. You know what I mean? This should be the main intention of having relations with his wife. But there are times where a person has relations with his wife, but he cannot have children right now. Let's say she's pregnant or she's nursing, right, or whatever, there's all kinds of...
You're not supposed to enjoy...
That's a very good question also. We have to talk about this, by the way. We should really cover it.
30 years ago.
Maybe, possible, right? But now I think we know a little bit more, We're a little bit more educated now than we used to be.
Trying to go around them, right?
Every year we get more gray hairs, so we're a little bit more smarter every year, So, yeah. So, what I want to tell you is like this, right, regarding this question. They say, right, the main intention should be to have children. But a person sometimes cannot have children, right? So then what intention does he have over there, right? There's also another intention, which is very, very important as well. Which is what? That you're giving your wife pleasure, you're giving her, this is a marital duty, right? One of the duties of the marriage is to give your wife what she needs. And this is one of the things that she needs, right? This is from the Torah, by the way. A person is obligated to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're in the back seat. Forget it. I'm joking. Okay, so let me tell you something interesting about that, right? Regarding what you're saying. See, the thing is like this, right? That a person, we talked just about this now with the couple over here, right? The Khatan and Kala. The truth is, right, that when a person gets married, his main focus should be to serve his wife's needs, not his own. You know what I mean? What does that mean? There's an issue not to be selfish. You know what I mean? So you have to put your wife's needs first before your own.
So then
this is one of the,
So then the Bible is completely misinterpreted. They call the people who believe in the old the Taliban.
Yeah.
It's all about the man.
Right. We're not practicing Islam. Believe me when I tell you. We have a different religion altogether. This is not Islam, right? It's certainly not radical Islam, for sure, right?
The woman is not allowed to be in the same room as the husband. Right. Sit at the same table.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay. So, regarding that, right, the truth is that a person, the Torah always trains you, to be mindful of your spouse first before yourself. You know what I'm saying? First give her what she needs. And then we'll see afterwards what happens. You know what I mean? Number one, because you have to be a giving person. The whole point of being a man, you're the leader of the family. you're the boss, you're the captain, whatever you want to call it, right? Is to be a giver. The whole idea of being a leader is to be a giver. This is the concept of Judaism. This is the ideal of Judaism. You have to give. So what does that mean? That when she needs you for this particular act, you have to come up and step up to the plate. Take a batter. Go step up to the plate. You have the obligation to do that if you can physically. Sometimes a person is tired, is sick, whatever. Can't do it. Whatever. But if you're able to do, you have to do. What does that mean? If you know that she wants, or you know that this is a time now, that there's like a time also, time thing. There's a schedule there, whatever. So if you know this is the time, you got to step up to plate. That's the idea.
It's not against sexual urges.
So the first point is I'm going step by step, because we're going to get to everything. But the point is, right, number one is your wife's needs. This is a very great mitzvah. It's from the Torah.
Yeah.
What about your needs? Right now, let's get back to yours.
I'm sorry, but your wife doesn't turn over all of a sudden and say, David, I want your children tonight.
Okay.
We're talking about pleasure.
Right.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yes. No, she doesn't have to say that. That's not the issue, right? I don't care what she says. That has to be your intention. You know what I mean? That's the idea. So, as we said, right, that now regarding your pleasure, right? Now we're going to get to that issue. So the truth is, right, the Torah tells us, halakha tells us that a person has to weigh this whole thing out. It has to be weighed out. What does that mean? You have to know yourself. How much do you need to function, as a human being? How much, what pace do you need? What rapidity that you need, right? How much do you need? You have to know yourself. So what does that mean? If a person knows now, right, that he needs, and if he doesn't do, he's going to have a problem. You know what I mean? We're not going to get into the problems. You know what the problems are, right? So if he has going to have a problem like that, so he should go and do it. Why? Because that's also considered to be a mitzvah. To take care of his own, Yetzer hara, his own inclination. That's also considered to be, right? But they say that these are all like different levels. What does that mean? The first level is to have children. That's the highest mitzvah. Highest, right? Then we have for your wife. Then we have also for yourself. You know what I mean? Different levels. This going down, as we go down. But the whole point is, right, that one thing the Chazal say though, right, as we say, all these things are considered to be mitzvah, what we just said now. There's one thing though which is not considered to be a mitzvah. You know what that is? This is considered to be a very foolish person. What's a big foolish person? That person doesn't really need it. He doesn't really, have any inclination right now. He doesn't feel anything in his body moving around, something shaking and moving there. He doesn't feel anything. So, but he arouses himself in order just to get, to get that one more, that one more play, that one more batter's box. That's considered to be very foolish. You know why? Because a person should not use, the intimacy with his wife as some kind of like a cheap thrill. Let me do it again. Let's try it again. There are some people who like chickens. As the Rambam says. What does that mean? 5 times a day they're with their wife. The chickens, okay, rabbits, okay. Okay, I got you.
What, they
you understand?
don't actually feel that they need to do it, but they do it anyway? Or?
Right, just want to get a little, pop, a little kick, something, a little, that's the idea, you understand? He doesn't really need it right now. His body he's very calm, he's very, soothed, he has he's not really, But there's also a time where a man, feels like pressure, because he needs to be with his wife. You know what I mean? There's a pressure there, physical pressure also. So you feel like, it's storing up there, it's gathering up. You gotta, take care of your, that's the idea. But they say the Chazal, by the way, regarding this, that if a person can overcome his inclination and not do it for himself, I'm talking about, right? Better not to do it. What does that mean? Wait till tomorrow, in other words, wait till it gets really, heavy, and then, go for it then. That's considered to be better than a person who, right. 1 second, I'm sorry. That's considered to be better. So, regarding this, right, that's what we're talking about. But a person who does it too much, what happens is, right, it says the Rambam, that he also hurts his health. Becomes like a chicken, becomes like a rabbit, whatever you want to call it, right? Then what happens is that it becomes like, a person who's addicted, and he loses his physical prowess, he loses his eyesight, a little bit. Not because that doesn't mean he goes blind, like that old. You know what I'm saying? The idea is that he starts to lose his focus in his eyes. He's too much, yeah.
I'm 13 years old.
Yeah.
3 years old. Very sexy.
Right.
We went to the, I take the bus to the academics, English, in science. I'm asking the teacher, is it true that from too much sex, we fall apart?
So, was there also another question you asked, by the way, regarding this? Did I forget something? To address something you said? Did I forget?
No.
Okay. So, the idea is like this, all right? Don't overdo it. Because once you overdo it, what happens is that you become very weakened. You're also, they say, by the way, another thing they say, by the way, about that, what the Rambam says regarding that, who was one of the great doctors of the world? Says the Rambam that most people die because of too much sex. Because it causes diseases. It weakens the body so much, so the immune system gets weak, and he starts to, this is what So, but what are we talking about here? We're not talking about somebody who does it like on a daily basis, every day. That's considers to be still normal. Yeah. We're talking about the 5 times a day guy, you know what I'm saying? We're talking those guys, you know what I mean? 5 times a day, like he's just making it into like a plaything,
Those guys from the 80s did die. The people from the 80s
right.
died. And then...
But the truth is that a person who's healthy, and he knows himself, right, that this is good for him, no problem to be every day, no problem. No problem with that. If that's what he thinks is good, for his body, and it's right. And if wife agrees, right? His wife agrees with that. It's no problem. You have to get to agree also, because otherwise you can't rape her. By the way, a person is not allowed to rape his wife. Hate to tell you, but that's something else. Bribe is good. Bribe is good. Bribe is very good. I have no problem with bribing.
Wait a second. It has to be a little more complicated than that. Raping your wife, I mean, if the man is, he needs it,
right.
She has to comply.
Right, but let's say she doesn't feel like it, whatever. She can't, sometimes a woman is not in the mood, what can you do?
You're a Jew, you're not Islamic.
Okay.
How many times is she allowed to say no?
Oh, if she's doing it on purpose to give, to make your life hard, this is a big sin. Yeah. That's something else. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about just sometimes she's not in the mood, something. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the idea. Okay, so anyway, getting back to what we said, right? That over here, for men, we have 40 days altogether. But the interesting thing is, as we said, like that those 33 days, even though she's bleeding, it's allowed. So not always bleeding is something which is not allowed. Something interesting, by the way, the Talmud says about that. You know what it says? There are some people who have this desire to be with a woman when she's bleeding. Like there's some kind of fetish like this. Whatever. So they say that he can do that during this period. In other words, he can fulfill his desire during this time, those 33 days. He has the time to fulfill his desire. But the truth is, right nowadays, I must tell you, the custom amongst all the Jews today is not to do this, though. What does that mean? That the rabbis pretty much, the Gaonim, right, which about 1,000 years ago, more than 1,000 years ago, they forbade this, to be with your wife when she's bleeding, even though she's really clean, according to the Torah. But they added something a little bit extra layer. What does that mean? Wait till she stops bleeding altogether, and then be with her. You know why that is? What's the reason why they made this stringency? The reason why they made it was because they were afraid that maybe a person will miscount these days, and therefore he's going to come to be with her at a time that he thinks that she's pure, but she's actually not pure. You know what I mean? So therefore they said, you know what? This is a little bit too dangerous for our times. People are not so particular about counting these things. Everything is not so particular. So therefore, right, they said, let's get rid of this thing. So therefore now the custom amongst all Jews is not to do that. But I want to tell you, right, regarding the woman, let's say she gives birth to a girl. So then what happens there, right? Now it's a totally different ball game. We said, right, with the boy, it's 7 days and 33 days, altogether 40. Over here, it's 14 days now. If she gives birth to a girl, she has to wait 14 days, right? And then she goes to the mikveh, according to the Torah, and then she has to wait another 66 days after that to go to the Bet HaMikdash and to bring her korban. So altogether, it's 80 days for the girl. So you see, for the male, it's 40. For the girl, it's 80. It's double. Interesting, right? So that's the way it is. And as we said, right, same thing applies over here. That once she finishes her 14 days, she goes to the mikvah according to the Torah, and then she can be with her husband even though she's bleeding for the next 66 days, no problem, because she's pure. You understand? This is the way it is. So once the 80 days is over, right, if she gave birth to a girl, then she will go to the mikveh, right, and then go to the Bet HaMikdash and bring her offerings. So this is the way it is, right? That's the idea. So, Rabotai, here also, by the way, the rabbis forbade this, right? Also, what does that mean? When you give birth to a girl, they said, don't have relations with your wife when she's bleeding. Even though she's tahor, she's pure, but nevertheless, we're afraid because of a miscount. So therefore, what we say is, right, that just wait till she stops, and then, right, after that, right, let her go to the mikveh one time.
In the old days, that engaging with your wife when she's having this is one of the worst sins ever.
Yes.
That anybody who does that, I remember you will have horrible things happen.
Yeah, I mean, this is a deal breaker. You know what I'm saying? It's like breaking Shabbat. Same level of basically. You know what I mean? It's a deal breaker. So a person has to be very, very careful about that. By the way, the easy thing is like this. There are some people, by the way, who they want to come clean. They want to do tshuva on this. You know what I'm saying? All their life they've been, they've been doing this, whatever. So now, right? If they're already old enough, let's say, right, the guy's already like, in his 60s, and his wife is in her 50s, whatever, something like that. So if her period's already stopped, basically now, right? She only has to go one time. That's it, right? It's a one-time deal. She doesn't have any more periods every month. So if she already went through menopause, what happens now is, right, she goes one time, and that's it, we're done, right? It's a 2-week process, the whole thing, right? A few days, whatever. Check herself, this, that, the checking, going to the mikveh, right? And that's it, you're done. So basically, right, there is also a big issue, right? A very big benefit for a woman who's not, even that, let's say, the husband and wife are not having relations anymore. There's no sex involved, and they're too old already, right? There's no more physical prowess, to engage in that, right? Let's say, whatever. So nevertheless, right, there is still a very big mitzvah to go to a mikveh at least one time for the woman. You know what I mean? That she should become pure. Why is that? Because they say, by the way, that a woman who is nida, she remains that way all her life like that until she goes to mikveh. There's no time limit there. So what does that mean? They say also, by the way, that this causes damage to the husband as well. What does that mean? That when she's impure, the impurity of nida is very, very strong. So the way she looks at you, the way she talks with you, the way she relates to you, it affects everything, So it can cause a lot of friction, a lot of, disharmony. They say, right, there's even evil eye that gets put on you. Can you imagine? Your own wife puts evil eye on you. If you, because the impurity of nida is so big, it's so large, that it changes the whole eye of the woman, the way she looks at you, the way she thinks of you, all these things, right, everything changes. So therefore, right, a person, if he wants to come clean after, he's already become a senior citizen, he can do that too, there's no problem. It's still a very big mitzvah to take his wife one time, right? Let her finish it off, right? So this way, now she's going to be pure all her life like that, no problem, right? So this is the way to solve the problem. So the truth is, right, that also regarding that, I just want to explain to you a couple of things. We don't have a lot of time. Yeah, it's already late. I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to also tell you regarding that there are certain things that a person is not allowed to do besides having actual relations with his wife when she's in nida. There's also other things involved there, right? The rabbis made more distancing there, right? More decrees to keep her away, to keep them away from each other, because sometimes when they get too close, they can come to actually do the act. So therefore, to keep them away, right? They said also not to touch her, not to sleep in the same bed, even though there's no hanky-panky there, nothing going on. You know what I mean? Doesn't make any difference. Sleep in a different bed, right? There's also the issue of, there's certain things, right? She's not allowed to do, like bathe the man, like let's say to pour water on him in the shower, whatever, or the bath, to bathe him, or also to serve him wine, like to mix wine and bring it to him, to serve him. So she'd do it in a different way, with the left hand and the left side with the right hand. There's all kinds you cannot hand anything over also, by the way. When the woman is nidah, the rabbis also decreed not to hand anything over to your wife directly. So what you do is it indirectly, right? Put it on the table, let her pick it up from there, right? Something like that, you know what I mean? All these things, the rabbis made distancing, from the nidah. In order that there should be no contact whatsoever. So the truth is, right, that you're allowed to talk with her. That's not the issue, right? But they say also don't talk with her too much. You know what I'm saying? Don't now start like philosophy and all kinds of romantic conversations, when she's nidah. Because this can lead to all kinds of things, you know what I mean? So a person should try to, just talk like, straight. Like you talk, like very cordial in a way, cordial in a manner. This way, right, doesn't lead to anything more, right? There's also the issue of making the bed, that she can't make the bed in front of him, because this also can lead to something, whatever. So they say, right, she should make the bed when he's not there in the room. Make the bed, and then he comes in, right? Then he sleeps there, whatever. The idea is like this, right? So all these things. There's a story I want to tell you. We'll stop here, right? We're getting late. So there's a story in the Gemara about this issue. Something really frightening, actually, right? Something pretty scary. What happens like this, right? That there's one woman who comes in to the yeshiva, right? They have a yeshiva over there. The rabbis are sitting there studying Torah, blah, blah, blah. So this lady comes in, and she's all upset, crying and very emotional, there's no... So the rabbis are looking at her like, what happened to you? Like, what happened? There was an earthquake? What happened to you? So she says, no, she says, my husband passed away, and my husband was a big rabbi, big scholar, big Talmid Chacham. Chacham Yiro. So she says, you know what? It says, she comes sits with the rabbis there, stands there. She says, I want you to tell me, you rabbis, you're supposed to be the wise people. So tell me, why did my husband die? What did he do wrong? He was a very righteous man. He was a tzaddik. He didn't do any sins. He studied Torah all day and night, non-stop. He was a totally righteous man, pious person. So he says, tell me. She brings the tefillin that he used to wear, this guy, Can you imagine? Why did my husband die? Look at this tefillin. This is my husband's tefillin. Why did he die? So the rabbis are like looking at each other, like who knows? Like they really know why this guy died. What are they? Moshe Rabbeinu? What, they're prophets? These people? They're not prophets. They don't know why he died. So they're like looking at each other. Like nobody has anything to say to her. They're also scared to upset her. You know what I mean? Now she's very emotional. She's upset. Her husband died. This, that, whatever. This is like a very, very ugly scene over here. You know what I mean? So what happens like this? That all of a sudden, right? Rabbis have no answer for her. Everybody's quiet. It's like you can hear a needle drop. All of a sudden, right? Who comes into the picture? The superhero comes in, right? Who's the the superheroes in the Talmud? Who's our superhero? The Superman. You know who it is, right? Eliyahu Navi. He comes, right? He sees what's going on over there. So comes Eliyahu Navi, dresses himself like a man. He's an angel already. He's a malach. Once he died, he became malach. So he came dressed in human clothes, like one of the rabbis over there. He says, let me ask you a few questions about your husband. He tells the lady, let me ask you a few questions about him. Tell me, how was it when you were nidah, right? When you're having your menstruation? How did he behave towards you? Did he touch you? Did he do something there? Something happen over there? So she says, no, God forbid, chas v'shalom. He says, never touched me. He was a clean man, totally tzaddik. He never did anything with me when I was nidah. So he says, okay, says Eliyahu Navi. Okay, I believe you. Says, tell me, he says, what about the sleeping arrangements, right? How was the sleeping arrangements when you were nidah? Different beds, different rooms. Were you Georgian? Different rooms? How did it work out, right? So she says, He says, regarding that, he says, you know what? We used to sleep on the same bed after the 7 days of nidah were over before she went to the mikveh, 7 clean days now she's counting. So he says, those days, he says, we were lenient that he would sleep on the same bed with me, but no touching everybody in his pajama, his own pajama. No touching me on this side, this one on the other side, right? Brady Bunch kind of thing, Everybody on his own side, right? Whatever. So she says, no touching, no nothing, chas v'shalom. So Eliyahu Navi looks at her. He says, Baruch hamakom she'orgo. You know what that means? It says, blessed is the God who killed him. He says, your husband. That's what he said. So they asked, why is this blessed? Why blessed? So he says, you know that when a woman is nida, you're not allowed to sleep in one bed, in one bed. Even though you're in your pajamas, she's in her pajamas, and there's no touching. Nevertheless, sleeping in one bed is also forbidden. He says, Baruch hamakam she'hargo. He says, blessed is the God who killed him. What does that mean? That a person on a level like this, right, a big rabbi like this, who died, this guy who died, he was a rabbi, he was a Talmid Chacham, So a person like this is considered to be, he has a high standard, he has to live by a high standard. When you know more, you have to do more. You know what I mean? When you're more knowledgeable, you have more responsibility as well. So therefore he says, right, this is why your husband died. Now we found the sin. So what happened over here, right? The rabbis were not able to find any sin in this man. What do they know about that, right? But Eliyahu Navi, he had Ruach HaKodesh, he was a prophet, he was a malach, he was an angel, so he was able to get out of her, right, this whole story. Why did he do this? You know why he did this whole ordeal, Eliyahu Navi? Because, can you imagine what it would be if she would come into it like this and nobody has any answer for her? So she walks out, no answer, what would that be? That would be Chilul Hashem. What does that mean? That would be desecration of the name of God. Why is that? Because they can't find one sin that this person did, right? He was a perfect tzaddik. So then God killed him, as if like unjustly, there was no justice. This is like a Chilul Hashem, it's the desecration of the name of God. So therefore, right, Eliyahu Navi, the reason why he came into the picture over here, he jumped in to the picture, is to show what? No, don't think like that. Everything Hashem does is just. You understand? So therefore he told her, right, Baruch HaMakim She'orgo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give us, B'ezrat Hashem, to be b'tahara, purity and cleanliness, B'ezrat Hashem, in all our families. Amen ve'amen. Chazak u'baruch. God bless you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.